Hey, look who's back now. It's Taylor Korn, Jim Dunaway. It's the basketball show, and I hate that it's running out, but we're down to the final regular season week. Two more regular season games to go. Then we're off to Nashville Selection Sunday. Hopefully, either Alabama or Auburn plays on that Sunday, so we can hang around again and watch the selection show with one of them. And then we're off to regionals at some places. So it's winding down. Um, Everyone was asking me on the golf course today, did you really break your TV? I really did throw my remote into a TV, and it was just one of my smaller TVs, but yes, I will be replacing that smaller TV. It's not working anymore. It is got a little part of it that's not working anymore, but it was one of my small 55 inches. So no big deal. We'll live to fight another day. I don't usually, I've said this years and years, Taylor. I get more into screaming at the television during basketball season than I ever do during football season. Um, and I can't do it when I'm at the game. So it's a road game and I'm at home. But Maggie literally left the house yesterday during the Alabama Tennessee game because I was so fired up during that game. I was screaming on three pointers, great defense, and then of course throwing stuff at the end. It was just a fantastic game.
I did not realize, I thought that was just a figure of speech. I did not
No, no,
realize that there
no.
was actual damage done to your home.
Yes, yes. There's the way I have my TVs, I do not have them mounted. I have a big one, my biggest TV. Two of them are on things, and then I have two smaller ones that are not in use right now. But during football season, I watch stuff on them, and they're sort of slanted right below. It helps my viewing to have it like that, and that's the one that caught the low and inside pitch from the remote when it went through because I knew it was going to go through. I did when they had the 5 seconds. I said they have. Instantly. Here's what I thought, and Alabama fans, I'm sure you did it with me too when they went to the freaking counter or table to review it and added a freaking second onto the clock, I said that second is going to kick six us in the butt. And because you remember the kick six, they added a second and they kicked a field goal, right?
Oh,
And
I
missed it short
remember.
and they ran it all the way back. And I said, oh, please don't add time. Please don't add time. You're going to add a second and somehow it's going to hurt, and then Alabama doesn't get it in, and then it goes through. And I knew once they had the 5 second call was called, I was like, they're going to hit it. They're going to hit it, or Alabama's going to foul them or something. So I was over it. I was over it until I just relived it right then, and now my heart rate is. I'm glad I got a doctor's appointment tomorrow. I'll get the heart checked out tomorrow. Taylor, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. We'll get to the SEC bracket, which you've been working on this afternoon, if the bracket started right now. But Hunter asked the question. This is the mailbag edition. He said, should the Tennessee timeout that they were trying to call, both the coach and Zakai Ziegler, should they have been awarded a timeout? I'll give you a chance to answer that first, and then I have an opinion on that as well.
I saw two different videos because I went back and looked at it. I wasn't paying attention to that during the game. I went back and looked at it after people started talking about it on Twitter, and the wider shot that I saw, I couldn't, it was hard for me to tell what was actually happening, what Rick Barnes was doing, just because it was further away. The camera shot in video number two was the angle of it. Rick Barnes wasn't in it until later, so it was Zakai Ziegler that I could see, and to me, it looked like he was trying to call a timeout. Again, this is just what was shown on the videos that I saw, so I don't know what happened, on other angles, but it looked to me that he was trying to call the timeout as the ball was being released. So I don't know, and I don't know what if there's a rule on this, an official rule in a rule book. But my question to the Alabama fans that are talking about it is, if you would have missed the shot, would you have
No.
wanted the timeout to call to
Yeah.
count? So it's like, is this an actual rules thing, or this is just a thing where I'm pissed off that this is the way the game ended, so let's talk about this. You know what I'm
I
saying?
I personally do not. Timeouts are awarded they're not always called, right? If the referee doesn't see you instantly, then it's not a timeout until the referee awards you the timeout. You're awarded a timeout. And I do think Zakai was getting a timeout signal before the ball was released. Which, by the way, how greedy is that? If I can't get the shot off, let's call a timeout. I don't trust anybody else. Obviously, they wanted Zakai to get the shot off, and
Wait, I
but
don't think that's greedy.
well, eh, I mean, it, but if they'd have given him a timeout, what would it have been? 1 second, 1.4
Well,
seconds. I mean, come on.
the way that I look at it is if that just wasn't how they had drawn up what they wanted to do, if that wasn't what they were looking for, I don't think it was Zakai being selfish.
Well, I mean, he didn't get the ball because Alabama was defending him. They didn't want him to get the ball, so the other guy, who probably wanted to shoot, was open. And it's a whole different things how they played that last possession. And Nate Oates took all the blame for it, but I wouldn't have given him the timeout because the refs are doing so much. Three of them, they're watching the ball as a shot going off before the clock, and it's so close to the shot going up and the clock running out, and he's trying to give a timeout. I don't think it. I think was officiated perfectly. Should not have been a timeout. Just a great shot, great ending. And my final thought on this is, as I said last night, even in anger, I said this last night. I loved the way Alabama played that game. I loved it, and there's a good chance I will love the way they play against Florida and love the way they play against Auburn, and they could lose both of them, and I would still feel really good about this team going to the tournament. I loved everything about that game except for the last 40 seconds. I mean, Mark Sears' bucket at 73-70, loved it. Loved the defense. I loved the fight. Loved everything about that game, except for the last 40 seconds. And then, that was a crap show. So if we'll get to Auburn, we'll get to Alabama trying to get back to the one line, Auburn's motivation in Nashville, Auburn's guard play, Denver Jones. But right now, if the SEC tournament started today in Nashville, let's go first. Who would get the four buys? Who gets the double buys all the way till Friday? Who gets the good stuff, Taylor?
So this is so complicated, and it was actually making my head hurt because of all of the tiebreaker stuff. Because you have Florida and Alabama that are okay. Well, let me answer your question first because I'll work through the tiebreakers as we go. But Auburn, Florida, Alabama, and Tennessee would be the four teams with the double bye.
Yes, that's the
They
good
wouldn't play
stuff.
till Friday.
Yeah, that's the stuff you want right there, man.
And then I'll just go through the ranking. So Auburn 1, Florida is 2 because, and that could change on Wednesday night. The first tiebreaker is head-to-head results. They
Yep.
have not played yet. And then next, you go to the record versus the number 1 seed. Florida 1-0, Alabama 0-1. So that's why Florida gets the nod there. And then Alabama, Tennessee, Missouri, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, South Carolina is how the rundown would look.
Yep.
And
Did you throw it into a bracket? Have you put it into a bracket since you've got the standings down?
I was working on that. I did not have enough time
Okay.
this afternoon, but I'm going to, and I'll post it on social media.
Okay. But if is Alabama a 3? Was that what you were telling me? Alabama's
Alabama's
a
a
3.
3. So
Okay.
they
So
would play the game 8, which would be the winner of game 8 would play Alabama if things stood as they are currently, would be the winner of Arkansas and Oklahoma. The winner of
yeah.
Arkansas and Oklahoma would play Texas A&M, and then the winner of that game would be Alabama's first tournament game on
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah, what I'm really looking at is if Alabama holds to a 3 and Florida holds at a 2, then Tennessee will be on Auburn's side of the bracket. If the good teams win on Friday, it would be Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, and Alabama in the semis, right? So technically, if it stays the way it is right now through this week, it could be Alabama and Auburn for the SEC championship on Sunday. They'd be on opposite sides of the bracket, if I heard you correctly, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Now, obviously, everything changes because everybody plays 2 games and Alabama plays probably the two best teams in the conference still, Florida on Wednesday and then Auburn on Saturday to wrap up the season. But it looks like, I mean, with all these great teams, there's no bad matchups in that bracket that you're putting together there, right?
There's I mean, no one's gonna have an easy road to the championship game. I'll say that much. How many people now have said it's winning the SEC tournament is gonna be harder than winning the national championship? Because every team you play, 9 teams in this one turn in this 16-team tournament are ranked in the top 25 in the country. It's
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah, I feel like we say it on this show, oftentimes you every week, just how tough the road is, and it's going to be even tougher when we get to Nashville. That gets us to Trent's question. So, what's Auburn's motivation when we get to Nashville? Because not that they're going to lose 2 games this week, but even if they lost both games this week, I still feel like they'd be the number one overall seed in the tournament, because they've been so dominant. And I do think there's a gap between Auburn and Duke on even the number one line. So Auburn can absorb a loss, probably 2 losses. But let's say Auburn wins them both this week. They're already SEC regular season champions. How much of a motivation is it? What's the motivation for Auburn going up to Nashville to try to win 3 games in 3 days?
If you listen to the players talk after, because they knew that they had clinched at least a share of the SEC after the Kentucky game. And when they were asked about, how does it feel? What does it feel like knowing that you've accomplished this in a year where it is so challenging? And they're all saying it's great, but this isn't our end goal. This isn't our end goal. And this is just a team. I think they want to win. Regular season did that. I think they want to win the tournament. I think they want to win the national championship. And yes, that's every team's goal every season is to accomplish those things. But I don't think that motivation is going to be an issue. I think that this team's self-motivated. I think they want to go out on the court. Every time they step out on the court, they want to, destroy who's ever in front of them. So I don't necessarily think that motivation will be an issue. That's my
Let,
personal opinion, but just listening to the players talk, it sounds like they're like, all right, yep, great, did that, but on to the next.
let
We're
me
trying to
ask you
be Texas
this.
A&M.
Do you feel like, because we were in Nashville last year and Auburn won 3 games in 3 days and stayed and watched the selection show, got their pairing with Yale, flew home, had to go to Spokane, won't have to go that far this time. They're one seed. They're likely headed to Lexington, Kentucky, and then Atlanta. So there'll be no travel, real serious travel. But do you feel like last year playing all the way through Sunday, was that team tired when they played that Yale game? Or I don't think so either. I see you're shaking your head. Do you think that had an impact, them having to play all those games in Nashville back to back to back, on when they got to Spokane against Yale, or do you think that was just a bad game against Yale and Yale won the game?
No, I don't think it had an impact at all. I don't think they were tired. I think what happened at the beginning of the game in terms of Chad getting ejected just threw them off, and I don't think that team had the mental toughness to overcome that. I don't think that a number of players had opportunities to take over that game, and no one stepped up. And I don't think the SEC tournament had anything to do with it. I just think that shook them a little bit, obviously altered their game plan, and I don't think that they were able to recover after that. And then it was just a bad game. And I don't
Yep.
think that the SEC tournament had much to do with it, no, or anything at all.
Clifton wants to know, in this mailbag edition of the basketball show, what does Alabama have to do to get back to the a one seed this year? I personally think that if Alabama beat Florida and beat Auburn, regardless of what Tennessee and Houston did, if they were able to win both of those games, they would be a one seed again. That's my opinion with everything they've accomplished. If they were able to beat Florida, lose to Auburn, if Tennessee lost to Ole Miss in their midweek game, if Tennessee goes 1-1 this week and Alabama goes 1-1 this week, I personally think that would jump Alabama back over Tennessee onto the one line. And then Houston should win both of their games this week. but they are two name brands anyway. They're home to Kansas and they're on the road at Baylor. I think if for some reason Houston loses one of those two games, there's a chance that and Alabama wins one of their two and Tennessee wins both of theirs. I think there's still a chance that three SEC teams are on the one line, but it would take Houston losing one of those games where they will be heavy favorites in it. Do you think there's a scenario Alabama can get back to a one seed in the NCAA tournament? Are they locked in on a two seed and that's where they'll have to make their bed?
No, I don't think they're stuck. I think personally that they need to win their next two games. They need to beat Florida on Wednesday night, and they need to beat Auburn in Neville Arena on Saturday. And I think that that's their path to do that. And just the way that people have been talking, whether it's on broadcast, just the people that cover bracketology heavily, I don't know why I get the feeling that the SEC isn't going to have three teams on the one line. I feel like it's kind of been settled, and I could be very wrong. This is just my interpretation of the way that people have been talking about it. It kind of to me seems like it's going to be two SEC teams, and then, like you said, Houston. I mean, they're playing two unranked teams in Kansas and Baylor this week. I don't think they'll lose those, and I think that they'll stay. And then Tennessee, if they don't beat South Carolina, then
Yeah, I
something
mean,
has gone horribly wrong, and they should
if
beat
they
Ole
lose
Miss.
one of, if Tennessee even loses at Ole Miss, I think that opens the door again for either Alabama or Florida at that point.
Yeah, because like you said, their resume ahead of, obviously the head-to-head matchup, put that aside, Alabama has a stronger resume, and neither of Alabama's losses would be quote unquote a bad loss. If they lost to Florida at home, if they lost to Auburn on Saturday, those are two right now top 5 teams in the country. So that's not going to be a big red mark on their resume. But I mean, what they need to do is they need to win these two games, I believe, because you can't control what's going on with Houston or what's going on with Tennessee and the teams around you. I think their best chance of getting back on the one line is going 2-0 to end the
Oh,
season.
oh yeah, I think that would do it regardless of what Tennessee does, just because of where Florida and Auburn both would rank and how big those wins would be. Thank you for that question, Clifton. There, James says, "Will Alabama ever get over the hump?" He's a little frustrated after that. I mean, Final Four last year. I don't know what the hump is for you, James. Are you talking about a national championship? I don't know about that. If you're talking about this specific team, I really like, as I said it earlier, I like this team. Denver injury. Carter wants to know about Denver Jones. How long will he be out? Give me in a nutshell what you've heard and what you think Denver is dealing with. And it feels like this could be one of those day to day, game to game kind of things.
Yeah, it's bone bruise. That was the diagnosis. And his sister posted something on Twitter because I think she was getting asked by a number of Auburn fans if she had an update. She said, "Don't know if he will play Thursday or Tuesday or Saturday," which is when Auburn plays their final two games of the regular season. In my opinion, I think they'll definitely play it safe. There's no need to push it. They have clinched the regular season. I wouldn't be surprised if he sat on Tuesday night when they play at Texas A&M and then played on Saturday when Alabama comes to town. But then again, who knows? I don't know the severity of the injury. They were very vague post game, and I'm sure that Bruce will be asked about it tomorrow in his press conference. And they probably didn't have, much of an answer to give because they were in Lexington. They're not
Yes,
at
sir.
home with their whole medical staff. So I think, yeah, it'll be a day to day thing. I wouldn't be surprised if he did sit on Tuesday, though, because Todd handled himself. He stepped up. He played big minutes, and I don't think that there would necessarily be a huge drop off defensively. Denver's, one of the best on Auburn's roster, but I think Todd got done what needed to get done. So
And that gets us
we'll
to
see what
West.
Bruce says.
I guess as to Wesley's question. He wants to know where do Auburn's guards rank nationally, in our opinion. I'll let you go first. I got two other groups that would be in the conversation, but I'll let you answer that first here.
Well, individually, so Ken Palm has rankings for everything under the sun, a bunch of different metrics, any sort of shooting statistic, team, individual, and they have a ranking system. And I looked at the SEC rankings for effective field goal percentage, which is it takes into account the value of a 3-point shot. So the 3-point shot and a 2-point shot or a free throw aren't going to be valued the same. Basically, more stock is put into a 3-point shot. Miles, Chad, and Denver are all in the top 16. They're, I believe, 14, 15, 16 in the conference in that. So I think that speaks for itself. In a conference where we have a lot of talented guards, they're near the top, all three of them. And I think Tahad has really improved throughout the season, defensively, especially because that's something that he struggled with at the beginning of the season. He's not turning the ball over. And we know that he can shoot. We know that he can hit shots. I don't know in terms of like where they rank. I think that in terms of previous Auburn teams, guard play is what they always lacked, and that's turned out to be a strength this season.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I would say when it comes to scoring the basketball, I'm gonna put Auburn's guards as a group at the best in the country. As a group scoring the basketball. I still point guard at times. I don't think maybe that's that compared to everything else on that Auburn team, point guard and distribution of the ball. Sometimes if you get a tall, good defensive team, may be something that happens down the stretch that could put you into a tight situation. But it's scoring the basketball. Auburn's number one in the country for me. Their guards create shots, can make shots, all kinds of style of play, they get it done. The only people I put into conversation with them, and this is my eye, no stats, no Ken Palm, no nothing, would be, I mean, Duke, when you've got Proctor and Flag there as guards, that's a pretty good backcourt there. Wisconsin has a trio of guards that has gotten Wisconsin battling for a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. They got a good set of guards. And listen, I like Alabama's guards. I do. I like Sears. I like Philon. I like Holloway. Um, I like Alabama's guards, so I'm not going to shy away from them either. I would put Auburn one, and then after that, I mean, there's some good groups in Wisconsin and Duke and Alabama, and you can find some others in the country, but those are the ones that pop for me. But when it comes to scoring the basketball, I think Auburn Wesley is the best in the country. That gets us to the quick preview of the couple of games that are coming up this week. The one Tuesday is Auburn at Texas A&M, final road game of the year for Auburn, where they are unbeaten on the road, right, in the SEC. Is that correct?
They are. They are. They are the last remaining SEC team that has not lost a conference road game. Texas A&M has hit a slump. They've lost four of their last five, and
Four
this is
straight.
one of
They've lost four straight. Yeah.
yes,
I
four
mean,
straight. And
yeah.
this is one of these teams that we thought that looked good and then has kind of started to slip a little bit.
Yeah.
And they I started looking at their losses, their conference losses specifically, and they are 7-2 in conference play when they allow, or no, they're 2-7. They're 2-7. They've won two games when allowing 70 plus points. So the
That's
low
right.
scoring games, and they're a good defensive team. The low scoring games are the games that they're winning. So if you can put up points on them, the likelihood of you winning that game seems to be pretty good. Um,
That's
they,
exactly the number I circled. I had they want to play the game in the low 70s. That's
yeah,
that's their style, and they really want to play like Tennessee played you guys down at Neville Arena. That's the kind of game they'd love to have. They'd love this thing to be 61-61 with a minute to go on Tuesday night. I just don't think you can do that to this Auburn team anymore.
no, I don't know how you stop them. When I watch them play games like the past two, I mean, it's mind boggling to me, but I'm just like, good luck. Good
Yeah.
luck to your opponent.
Yeah, I really feel bad for I mean, it was 2 weeks ago, maybe, when somebody said would be national championship or bust. I forget who asked that question on the mailbag 2 weeks ago, and we sort of scoffed at it. Come on, man, just making the Final Four would be a big accomplishment. Blah 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 blah. I don't know anymore, little T. I mean,
Hey,
I'm just saying this team is. You say it all the time. This team is special,
it is.
and
It is.
and it's to the point where anything but is. I mean, it's hard to imagine them not. It's hard to imagine them. I forget what it looks like when they lose. They lose so little. Like I was at the Florida game. I remember what that looked like.
Yeah, ugly.
It did. It
So
did.
bad.
It did. And that can happen, right, in the NCAA tournament. But they come at you so many different ways. It is just, I mean, it would. I said it on the golf course with my Auburn buddies today. It will be a massive upset to me if they lose a game in the NCAA tournament because and I really do. I don't think anybody can beat them. I think they'll have to beat themselves. They have to play a crappy game like they did against Florida. And really, Walter Clayton had a hell
Yeah.
of a game that day. So it wasn't like it wasn't against somebody good. Keep an eye on Wade Taylor Jr. He's their best player for Texas A&M. That's Auburn, Texas A&M. Tuesday night, we'll have post game after that. And then we'll be at Coleman Coliseum for the final home game of the year on Wednesday night. Florida and Alabama, early tip there. Just mentioned Walter Clayton Jr. He can dominate a game. I think what Josh Hubbard did in Starkville against Alabama. Alabama's defense has been so good lately. They've really turned the corner on the defense. They'll have to be super good against Florida because Clayton's good on the outside, Condon and the big on the inside. So to me, um, it's as big to me. Florida is as big of a challenge as Auburn is. These two games, Alabama could play great and lose, but inside outside, Clayton and Condon, Florida is as dangerous as anybody in the country, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think this game, in my opinion, is going to be a big mental game for Alabama too. They obviously need to play well. You need to play well to win any single conference game. But I think this is going to be, how do you respond? You know how challenging your next two games are, and you've known. I think it was their last 11 games or something. They had 11 straight quad one games. The end of their SEC schedule has been a gauntlet. It's been the most challenging schedule in the country. And I think it's going to be, how do they respond? How do we see them bounce back? And what type of effort, what type of energy do we see them play with after coming off an emotional loss that, we all watched on Saturday?
Yeah, I was thinking to myself, um, again, my wife had left the house because I was being so obnoxious during the game. So I'm at the house by myself, and as we did our show. I probably cut that a little short. Then I laid in darkness and silence for a little bit. And as I was sitting there thinking, I was like, would it have been worse if the game had just gone to overtime and Alabama had lost by 5 in overtime and played like crap in overtime? Because I felt like that's what was going to happen. So it almost feels better that it was such a national moment, the buzzer beater, Mark. Oh, welcome to March. Everybody's doing that. Sports Center's doing it. It probably almost felt better ending that way than if you'd have gone to overtime and played like crap and lost by 5. So a little darkness time for me
Hmm.
to think about that a little bit. Um, this team has lost at Tennessee by a lot. They lost at Kentucky. They lost at Georgia, but they've won at Auburn and they've won at Mississippi State. So Coleman Coliseum, they've got a mixed bag. We'll see which Florida team shows up. All right, fun week ahead. Look forward to it. I hope you guys have enjoyed the basketball show. Remember, like and comment, give us thumbs up wherever you're watching us, and we will be live Tuesday, live Wednesday post game, and then another taped one on Friday morning to get you ready for the final weekend of the regular season. And then we're going to keep the basketball show going all the way through the NCAA tournament, at least as long as Auburn and Alabama are playing. And knowing Taylor and I, we may, even if Auburn and Alabama don't make it to the national championship game. Heck, we were at the national championship game last year, and
Yeah.
our local team was playing. So we're going to keep going with the basketball show until they cut down the nets in San Antonio. Enjoy your weekend, Taylor, or the start of your week. The weekend's over. Enjoy the
Yep.
start of your
You
week.
too.
All
I'll see
right.
you. See you in the
That'll
morning.
work. That's the basketball show, everybody.